things and give you some self-care tips at the end to prevent kind of the mental health consequences that could happen. And I believe we're going to start it with a poll. Please feel free to vote and chime in. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for letting me know. And that kind of helps me figure out how to gear the presentation and kind of figure out what's the best way to meet those needs. So like Erin mentioned, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a trauma specialist. I help people heal from all sorts of overwhelming events throughout the lifetime. And I wasn't sure if this would be interactive, so I think there's a chat place somewhere, but I'm wondering, what do people hope to learn today? What do they want to gain? What would be the best way that I could help you over the next hour? I don't know if there's a little chat box somewhere, but I don't see it, so I'll just continue. Here's what to expect. Have some fun, learn a bit about mental health, what it is, what it isn't, learn about mental illness, gain an understanding of yourself, and just gain some self-care ideas. At the end, you're welcome to take notes, you're welcome to write down whatever you'd like, and I believe this will be available online after. My goal is to help you manage stress, to help you understand the early warning signs, to help you know what, something's not quite right, it's time to get help, and just have some fun. Because really, especially in a year like this, having fun, connecting, talking to people is really what it's all about, just to keep things okay enough. I usually do an icebreaker. I don't know how it works with online. I don't know if it'd be possible, so we'll just skip that piece. Mental health versus mental illness. So pretty much, it's kind of confusing, but mental health speaks to the quality of health you have. So mental health can range from excellent all the way down to poor, like it did during the poll. It can include your state of mind, it can include your thoughts, your emotions. Even mental health includes how you feel in your body. And then mental illness refers to when there's a prolonged state of discomfort. So you feel really intense emotions lasting for more than a few weeks that are interfering with your quality of life. You feel really bad physically, you're having a lot of thoughts that are really concerning you, or it's interfering with your quality of life. So mental health kind of speaks to that clear thoughts, clear emotions, things in balance, and mental health mental illness kind of speaks to the opposite. Things to look for when we look at mental illness is, am I avoiding certain places and people? Am I avoiding certain emotions? Am I trying really hard not to think about something? So some people get home from work and then they turn to that glass of wine just to forget about work, just to take the edge off, but all those sorts of things. Feeling really anxious and really overwhelmed, which could be the intense emotions, but it could also be kind of that stomach ache, that heart racing, that just feeling of ongoing discomfort. And a lot of people will find this happens in the morning or early in the day, or when they're reminded of something that overwhelms them. Some people also find that their self-care really plummets as mental illness increases, because when you're so overwhelmed by emotions, overwhelmed by thoughts, overwhelmed by all those things, it's very hard to prioritize yourself, your self-care, and your emotional needs. The other big thing is disrupted sleep. So if you're finding you're just not sleeping like you used to, you're laying in bed and your thoughts are racing, or you're thinking about all kinds of random things, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, that could be just waking up naturally, or waking up feeling panicky, feeling overwhelmed, or nightmares. So self-reflection. So this is kind of a question that's open to the audience. If you want to type in your chat box, you are more than welcome to. But I'm just wondering how everyone kind of feels right now emotionally. And you can even just reflect on it for yourself. Just noticing what's going on in this moment. Am I feeling calm? Am I feeling anxious? Is there something I'm going to do later today that has me concerned? Am I frustrated about the fact that things aren't going the way I want them to? Or is there someone in my life who's crossing a boundary or something and I'm holding on to frustration? How do I feel physically in this moment? Here I am at this presentation, but do I feel engaged? Do I feel active? Do I have energy? Is it the morning and I feel sluggish and heavy and weighed down? What is going on physically? And what's going on in this moment? So one of the things is once we know our baseline, where we're at when we're at our best, when we're doing well, we can begin to assess for when things aren't going well. And one of the big things people find, both work-wise and especially during this pandemic, is that at the beginning they were in that fight or flight mode. They were working really hard. They're like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep my business running. I'm going to work really hard at this. And over time, it's almost like their energy got depleted. And when our energy depletes more and more, it leads to this thing called burnout. So burnout is pretty much defined as this exhaustion. It's when you just can't fully wake up, can't fully enjoy the moment. A lot of people feel that it's like depression. So what often happens is people go into their doctor and they say, you know what, I'm depressed, I'm exhausted, I don't feel good. And the doctor will often diagnose depression. But what a therapist would look at is what's the context. Because just because you have a group of symptoms doesn't mean you have a specific illness if the context isn't taken into consideration. So the first stage of burnout is actually enthusiasm. So this usually happens when people start a new job, start a new adventure, start something that they enjoy. But for our purposes, we'll talk about it at the beginning of the pandemic. And it wasn't enthusiasm, yay, pandemic, but it was the panic. It was the extra energy. It was the, okay, how do I adapt? What do I do? What does this mean? Okay, things are in lockdown. And it's that extra energy which starts the whole cycle. It's the extra anxiety. It's that extra, all those little pieces. Which leads to stage 2, when things just feel still. So I would say in regards to the pandemic, this was when we went into lockdown. And at the first, everyone's like, okay, I'm going to do those little fairy bags and give them to my neighbor. And I'm going to be, really excited and really engaged in community things. And I'm going to do all these Zoom chats. And within a few weeks, it just kind of stopped. And people reach this new kind of normal where they're working from home and they don't really do anything. And they just kind of feel like, is this life? And they might feel a bit bored or a bit checked out or just a bit tired. And that kind of reaches that stagnation phase where you don't feel like anything's terrible, but it doesn't feel quite right either. And then the third stage is frustration. So over the summer, we kind of entered that frustration phase. And you could see it with people protesting, I'm not going to wear masks, Black Lives Matter, everything is really big. And those are important causes. But what it is that frustration and understanding this is a completely normal burnout process. You just really want your voice to be heard. You really want to get out there. I want things to go back to normal. I want things to reopen. And it's that extra kind of anger behind it. During this phase 2 in our community, crimes increased, divorces increased, domestic violence increased. But I think people would have a really different experience if they realize this is just a completely normal burnout process, a completely normal reaction to a very overwhelming event. And I always tell people it's at this frustration phase when things just don't feel right before there's a big, huge issue, before the big, huge depression, that is a great time to reach out because you still have enough energy and enough dedication and enough motivation to want to make something be different, to want to go to therapy, to want to get that support, which leads to the fourth stage, which is apathy. You've said your piece, you've done your protesting, you've done everything you wanted to do, and it feels like nothing changed. It feels like I was going to change the world. I was going to make this be different. I was going to get that virus and make it go away. I was going to show my ex who's boss. I was going to do this and this and this and this and this. And the hope was to create this big, huge change, and nothing really happened. So usually at this stage, people just feel disillusioned. They feel like, why bother? They feel like giving up. And usually they just feel kind of like bored and unmotivated. When I see people who come in during this stage, they just say, I don't know, nothing's exciting. Work isn't exciting. I'm just kind of bored. I'm just kind of checked out. I don't want to see my friends. I don't want to see my family. I just kind of want to, I don't know, hang out by myself in my room and Netflix and chill. Or I just want to play on my phone. I don't really want to do anything else. But what happens after that is the stage that people usually term burnout. And it's that kind of complete collapse. And in my perception, this is going to be our winter. I think up until now, people have been kind of trying, things reopened, people were like, yeah, we can get back to it. But now looking at this second wave and looking at what's happening mental health wise and everything, and also with the changes in seasons, winter and fall bring people more depression. I worry that people are going to start entering this collapse stage. Start entering that stage where they feel like nothing matters, I'm depressed, I'm worthless, I can't make things be good, I can't have a good job, I'm worried about things financially, I'm not motivated, I'm staying in bed all the time. A lot of people are going to be crying a lot. The winter depression's probably going to be pretty rocky, pretty rough. If there was ever a time for people to reach out to anywhere for help, this winter will be the time, because I worry that the suicide rate will go up with everything people are experiencing mental health wise. A lot of people at this stage go to their doctor and they say, I'm depressed, which leads to getting on antidepressants, which sometimes helps, sometimes doesn't, but there's usually a whole trajectory of experiences after that. And then therapy is kind of the alternative option, which is the, I guess, healthier, safer, whatever kind of option. So this is our time for our second poll. I think Melissa has it somewhere. I was just wondering, do people know when things aren't going well emotionally? When they're in pain, when they're struggling? Okay, excellent. The truth is, we're kind of a weird society because we don't ever really teach people about mental health. We don't go to schools and tell people these are your emotions, here they all are, here's what they mean, here's when they happen, here's how you can use them for information. And there's almost this unspoken social pressure to push away your feelings, push away your thoughts. And in the past, people have even been shamed for expressing emotions. And people will say things like, oh, just calm down. Just don't worry about it. It isn't that much of a big deal. So it's not uncommon that people do give results like these, that people do kind of say, I don't really know. I don't know. I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to like live my life, have a good relationship, work my job, run my business, and just get on with my life. I find too, a lot of times when people reach out for the first time, they say, just give me the skill, just give me the tool, just fix me. As if we're that simple, as if we're these kind of easy black and white, simple to fix creatures. Thank you for engaging in that poll. I just wanted to take a moment to do a breathing exercise together, to calm into this moment and to connect with our bodies. So if you just put one hand on your heart and then one hand below on your tummy, and I just want you to take 3 deep breaths. And I want you to notice if you can feel your chest rising or if you can breathe into your diaphragm. Just see what you can feel. During this breathing mindfulness, we'll do one more deep breath. If other thoughts come to your mind, just gently push them away. Just gently let them go so you can notice fully what you're feeling in your body in this moment. By connecting with our body, we can generally step more into the present and step out of that kind of fight or flight survival mode that it's so easy to get ourselves into. So usually what I would do is I'd ask people what they've learned so far. We do a bit of a check-in, but online's a little different. So we'll just skip some of those social pieces till the end. So people often ask me, who's at risk for burnout? Who's going to get it? And it's kind of a funny thing because people have this very specific idea of who gets mental illness, who gets trauma, who gets all these things. And none of that really exists. Every single person out there is completely acceptable because we're all human beings. But burnout kind of is more impactful to the opposite of what people think. People think it'll be this person who never does anything, who just hangs out, and they're the people who are going to burn out. But what it often is it's these business people, entrepreneurs, the all-stars, the people who are going to go above and beyond, who are going to give everything, the people who've been working so hard to adapt their business, to adapt their life, the people who are really going above and beyond. And that's why I think through the spring and summer, mental health might not have been as much of a concern, but then come winter, when your energy is depleted from already going above and beyond before, then it's going to be an issue. Sometimes people burn out when the current circumstance relates to something in the past. So I'm thinking people with medical trauma pre-pandemic might be having a lot harder time. People who've lost people they love to viruses, people who might have had other big, huge life changes, might have immigrated, might have done something else that completely changed their life. This might re-trigger that. Also, people who struggle to set limits and ask for help. So it's kind of a funny thing because we still kind of shame people for asking for help. We say, oh, you should be able to do it on your own. Why do you need this and that? And we say it to ourselves, oh, I should be able to do it. I should know my emotions. Why do I even struggle with this? But we're human beings and we're not supposed to be able to do it on our own. We're supposed to be connected to all the people around us. We're supposed to be reaching out for help. We're supposed to be kind of working as a team, working as a community. That's what's needed for good mental health. What helps with burnout? So normally in other circumstances, what really helps is having a sense of purpose, is balancing out that self-care, is kind of figuring out what are my morals, what are my values, what do I need, is looking at creating a balanced life. So a bit of fun, a bit of leisure, a bit of socializing, a bit of kind of connection, spirituality, community, and some work, some purpose, some creation. We kind of need all of those things to have that well-rounded mental health. Being supported, thanked, and appreciated goes a long way in preventing burnout. We kind of think we can do it on our own and don't need feedback, but we really do need to sometimes get that reassurance that tells us we do matter. It is worth it. During the pandemic too, what's really going to make a big difference is don't watch the news. Don't look up the news on your phone. Don't look up the graphs all the time. Turn off the radio or switch to a different channel that isn't playing it. It might sound silly because you're like, but Angela, I want to know. I need to know the latest news. I need to be on top of this. But what happens is every single time you see those things that remind you, you're getting a little bit of cortisol and a little bit of adrenaline, which then you have to pay back later, which will, over the short term, possibly lead to anxiety, but long term could lead to depression. Wellness. So usually I'd ask people what kind of things they do for wellness. What does it look like in the past? So I'm thinking pre-pandemic, it could have looked like a community event each week, or being part of a peer group, or running, or jogging, or going to the gym, or board game night, or going to the park, all sorts of things like that. It's been kind of tricky because now we have to adapt everything to a brand new version of what can I do for wellness and enjoyment in the safety of my own home. One big thing I'll often tell people about is mindfulness. So the activity we did on our halftime was kind of a body mindfulness activity. And if you look up kind of Angela Englander, Ways to Wellbeing, there are some other little mindfulness activity videos I have online. If you're wondering why my name doesn't match, got married during the pandemic. So there you go. Mindfulness is whenever we come into the moment and connect with something So you can even do a mindfulness of like an object near you, just really slowing down, pushing away all your other thoughts and connecting to what is this thing? Describing it, just noticing it, and really engaging with anything that's happening in that exact moment. Self-awareness is a big, huge key piece, because the more we try to ignore ourselves, ignore our emotions, ignore what our body's telling us, not feel these things, not think about these things, the more they tend to come back with a vengeance later. So it's kind of an interesting thing, because I feel like the whole self-help arena, a lot of people go to that. They're like, I don't want to tell anyone I'm struggling, so I'm just going to like pick up this book or listen to this audio tape or do this or that. Short term, you're like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And you're pushing yourself so hard, but you're really missing what your body, your emotions, and your brain is trying to communicate with you. All of those things are really important to be able to hear, to be able to grieve, and to be able to work through in order to have good long-term mental health and kind of prevent more of the chronic illness type of stuff that can come from avoiding our emotions. Another big thing is knowing our limits. It's kind of hard because you might have been someone pre-pandemic who could work that 40-hour work week, who could volunteer on the weekend, who could go out to those social events and attend church on Sunday and to do all of these things. And now that everything is completely shaken up, your new normal might be entirely different. And you might be someone who 40 hours a week pushes your energy level. You might be someone who needs to take a specific time to just slow down, to do self-care, and to really notice when those limits are being crossed. What I've really noticed is it's either anxiety or anger that comes up when our limits are crossed, either anger at ourselves or anger at other people. So people will say, I was fine, and then all of a sudden I freaked out. Or I was fine, and then all of a sudden I was so anxious I couldn't do anything. And what's happened is there have been little tiny red flags along the way that we're getting close to our limit, and we completely ignored them until our body or our brain said, absolutely nope, full stop, that's it. And then people judge themselves and say, oh, like something's wrong with me, I'm broken, I'm damaged. But realistically, it's just your body and your brain trying to communicate with you. Ask for support from people. People often feel a lot of shame about reaching out. They feel like they should be able to do it all on their own, but we cannot, and we aren't designed to. Our brain has these fancy little things called mirror neurons, which actually their whole purpose is to connect us to people we're around. So you might notice when you're in a group, when you're with a lot of people, if one or two people get anxious, everyone gets anxious. It's a really strange thing, but we really do sync up to the people we're around. Similarly, you might find that if you're in a group of people, even if you're anxious, if they seem really calm and they're like, it's okay, we'll just go for a walk or whatever, you can feel your anxiety level coming down. Having community and connection is really important because we are group species. We don't think we are because we live in our individual houses and we fence them up and we make sure we're really separate from all the people around us. But biologically, we're not meant to be able to do that. We're supposed to be able to connect. We're supposed to be talking to other people. We're supposed to help each other out. And we're supposed to all get farther as a community. And that's kind of why I do these sorts of community events and things, to get farther as a community. There is nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. There's a lot of stigma about therapists. There's a lot of judgment. We can't read your mind. We're not going to ruin your life. Therapists don't even do the diagnosis medication part that people are so afraid of. We work with other ways to regulate your nervous system, other ways to calm your mind, other ways to do all those things that isn't diagnosis medication. And so the final piece is, what does self-care mean to you? Why does it matter to you? What is important about it? Self-care can mean many different things to many people. It's kind of one of those things where I think originally people were using it kind of in a commercialistic way. So self-care is go buy that massage, go get your nails done, go get your hair done, do this and that. But at its core, what it actually is doing anything that makes you feel like you matter. Doing anything that refills your cup and helps you replenish. And what it actually does is it brings us into what's called our window of tolerance. It re-regulates our nervous system, and it allows our brain and our body to stop flooding with stress hormones for a few minutes and to be able to catch up on everything it needs to do on the inside. Physical self-care, I feel like when people say self-care and I ask what you do, this is usually what people tell me. Angela, I drink some water, I eat healthy food, I go for a walk. That's self-care. And yeah, it is one piece of self-care, but it's multifaceted. There's so many pieces to it. So the first piece is anything that helps your body kind of release the stress and be in the moment. Emotional self-care is checking in with yourself. What am I feeling? What are my emotions? Being gentle. So what sometimes happens is people will feel an emotion and then they beat themselves up for it. Oh, why am I angry? What's wrong with me? Why am I broken? Why do I do this? Oh man, I can't do anything right. And their experience could be entirely different if they were able to switch it. Okay, I feel something, but it's okay. I've handled emotions before. I can get through this. Being on your own team and advocating for yourself, having your own back. So when people are hurting, what they'll sometimes do is they'll do something that makes it just a little bit worse. So, I'm having such a bad day. Okay, I'll go add a substance. And people do it because they don't want to feel the emotion. But what you're doing on the inside is you're adding insult to injury. You're just making things just one step worse. Just a little bit less good for your body and brain. Psychological self-care. So really taking care of our mind. And that is connecting with those thoughts. What am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What do I need? Reflecting. You can do what's called an emotion log. You can look them up online. You can get them easily. But really getting to know yourself. How does my mind work? What are my triggers? People sometimes don't even know what it is that's upsetting them. But doing just that baseline psychological self-care can really make a big difference in changing the long-term kind of trajectory of your mental health. Spiritual self-care, which people often don't think of as a part of themselves, but it's connecting with anything that is bigger than you, anything that is beyond your I'm just one person, I'm an individual kind of feeling. So some people turn to religion, they pray, they go to church. Some people turn to the world around them, they spend time in nature, they go for walks, they sit with trees and read. Some people kind of go inwards and they try to meditate and do mindfulness and kind of connect to the energy of all the other people doing those activities. Some people connect with videos that are inspiring, or movies that are inspiring, or something that gives them that sense of inspiration in that way. And creating balance. What I often find is when people are under stress or under trauma or things like that, very quickly their life gets out of balance. So they might find they're working all the time and doing no self-care, or they might find they're not really working, but they're not really being productive around the house either. They're just kind of in a slump. Or all they want to do is go out, have fun, and forget about it. It's really hard to keep things balanced sometimes for people, but it makes a big difference when you do have that kind of all-around balanced life. And then the next part is just your questions. Just an open time to talk about what you thought of the presentation, what's going on for you, asking any questions about mental health or asking any questions about therapy. And you can do that in a little chat box somewhere. Okay. I'm sure it may take it. Okay. So about anxiety and depression. So it's one of the big things to understand, and a lot of people have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression this year, is what is causing it for you. So people often think there's one answer, one solution, one strategy. And people all the time reach out and say, hey, I have depression. What am I supposed to do to fix this? So depression usually stems from sadness, which is about grieving and losing something. So this could be kind of a historical loss, could even be an intergenerational loss, so something your parents lost. Quite like this year, it's about I've lost my job, or I'm not going there as much person. I've lost my social connections. So really exploring those other layers of loss. One thing I often tell people is allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to move forward, but also allow yourself to dream and see a light at the end of that tunnel. So it might look like connecting with sadness. I feel so down. I'm so exhausted. I don't want to do anything. And yet, it's only a short-term thing. Once the winter passes, there will be a lot less COVID and everything in the spring. And then what do I want to do? What's my dream? What do I want for myself? And how can I take little tiny steps to get there? Would it be taking an online course of some sort so I gain a new skill? Would it be dreaming a new dream? Would it be looking at switching jobs or looking at learning in a new way? And then what I find with anxiety is it's often about fear. And this could be a general, I'm actually scared of this thing, or it could be very subtle, like subconsciously realizing you lost a lot of social connections, and then having anxiety about what will that look like? Will I be disconnected? Or it could really be like pandemic virus related fear, which is I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get my family sick, I don't want anything bad to happen to us. And then what I often say is avoid looking at things that are going to re-trigger your specific fears or specific anxieties. So avoiding the news, avoiding media, avoiding things that will be too much for you. And then, comforting yourself and creating a way to feel safe. So if it's in your bedroom, making your bedroom an oasis. Bringing a plant you like, playing some soft music. Some people find that there's kind of a smell or something they are eating that really brings that calming feeling, and just having those things prepared ahead of time for when your body needs that extra boost to calm anxiety. Any other questions? Nothing else?
If anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, please feel free to.
One of the things a lot of people have asked me in past presentations is, what do people do in therapy? So I can answer that one, just in case anyone has it. What a lot of people do, and it's a little bit different this year, is this year I'm having people kind of text in or email in to book an appointment. So my number is 647-834-8631. And what happens is people reach out, and the first thing I do is I send a consent form and an intake package. This makes sure we have informed consent, which is really important, allows people to kind of know a bit about me, and allows me to get some information about them. So what kind of things have you experienced in the past? Do you have a job? Where do you work? What does your family look like? What are your goals? What would prevent you from being able to do therapy? And then a little bit of medical information. And what this allows is every single person who comes in and gets support here gets an individualized plan. I don't do any one-size-fits-all things because that doesn't work. I found a lot of places do that, and then people feel like they failed therapy, or they say, I talked to so many therapists, nothing helped. But that's because the solutions they provided weren't specifically for you. It wasn't what you needed. It was just a blanket solution. So therapy helps as long as it's specifically catered to each individual person. How can we recognize signs in our coworkers that may be working remotely? That's a tricky one. Okay, so it's kind of a tricky thing because you might notice or you might not notice. So if you're working via video, one thing I'll often say is people might look really tired or really disheveled. Depression often looks like haven't showered in a few days, really run down, really tired. You might find that you've noticed like a personality shift in your coworkers. So there used to be someone in the office that was so perky and bringing in cupcakes on Fridays and who was really that personality. And now they come to online chats or meetings and they just seem deflated. They just seem exhausted. They just seem like checked out. That's a big one. People missing a lot of work or meetings is a big one. Often when people have anxiety or depression, it's really hard to get places and do things. And even attending one meeting might feel like too much. So you might notice this person just seems to gradually disappear, or other things like that. Or they might like literally say, something's wrong with me, I don't know what it is. something's up, I just don't feel quite right. Any other questions? Oops. Okay. Well, if that's all, then thank you for joining me today. It's been really lovely, and I will maybe connect with you in the future. Stay well, and if you need to reach me, my email is angela@ways2wellbeing.ca. So it's ANGELA@WAYSTOWELLBEING.ca. Thank you all for being part of this experience.
Thank you very much.